This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Our topic for today is Nigeria at 64, the journey so far. And my guests are Afam, Nwokedi Esquire, and Adefeko. Afam, Nwokedi, how are you?
Thank you very much.
How is life treating you?
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And of course, I have the indefatigable Adefeko. Ade, how are you? How are you doing now?
I can't complain.
We're going to discuss Nigeria at 64 today with this gentleman. As customary with the discourse, I'm going to read out very short, very short version of their profiles. I've tried to summarize it because if you leave these two, their profiles could fill a dissertation, isn't it? Like we say in PhD thesis. Afam Nwokedi is the principal counsel and group head of Stillwater's law firm. He has over 30 years experience in law practice, law initiatives, and case law development in Nigeria. Afam Nwokedi has consulted for Commercial Law Development Program CLDP of the United States Department of Commerce and presently consults for the World Bank Intellectual Property Organization YIPO. Afam Nwokedi sits on the board of several companies and is a member of the various local and international law associations. That will be Afam. Afam, welcome again.
Thank you very much for having me.
I also have Adefeko, who is a commercial diplomat, visionary leader, and a global executive. Ade has done a lot of things. You know, he has over 30 years of professional career spanning diverse sectors like FMCG, banking, brokers, pay TV, and big time in agriculture, isn't it? Ade is a polyglot, and we'll explain during the program what I mean by that. An avid writer and a pundit. And when I mean pundit on diverse conversations and discussions. He contributes to national policies and issues. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So we reflect on Nigeria. Normally, this program, I normally end with proverbs.
Yes.
But today I'm going to start with proverb because it's Nigeria. And the proverb is, when roots are deep, there is no need to fear the wind. When roots are deep, there is no need to fear the wind. So, after I ask, Nigeria gained independence in 1960. The British established a taproot before they left. How, therefore, how strong and deep were these roots they left for us? Do we have need to fear the wind?
Do we have need to fear what?
The wind. Because they left us with strong taproots, you know, after independence.
Well, it depends on the kind of wind you're talking about. If you're talking about hurricane, it's a wind.
Okay.
Everybody will have need to fear.
Okay.
If you consider what is going on in the world today. But by and large, I think we've gone through a lot of things together as a nation, and we shouldn't have need to fear any.
There's no need to fear it.
Absolutely no need.
No, Ade, what do you think? Because, and I know you normally like to start your conversations with songs that are situational. I'm sure you have one today.
I will reflect on Bongo Zikwe and Sonny Okosu's song when Nigeria was 25, our Silver Jubilee. And my voice is not very good, but the audience would just indulge me. Nigeria is 25. The odds we did survive. Arise, salute the nation. Come join the celebration. A nation divided will never fall. Right now we're 64. Can we still sing that song? But like you are speaking to roots. We have branches. But those branches, are they being watered?
Okay. So the branches need to be watered for the roots to remain strong, isn't it?
Yes.
So let me start with Afam again. Let me go to Afam Nwokedi. You see, the Nigerian potential is in no doubt at all. However, the frightening challenges that Nigeria faces against this enormous potential surmises the urgency of the Nigerian situation. Is Nigeria truly independent after 64 years?
Yes, it is.
In your estimation?
In many ways.
Okay.
In many ways, truly independent. It depends on what you want the independence for. You know, are we independent of external influence?
Okay.
Is anybody really truly independent from external influence? Nobody is. So I would say no, we are not. But are we independent? Can we say that we are independent in the decisions that we make as a nation for our own betterment? Yes, we are.
So are they difficult? So are we truly independent?
I think to a large
64
extent,
years after.
I think to a large extent we've gone through that process. Okay. The journey has been very adults.
And checkered,
yes. And we've, people always talk about checkered career.
Yeah.
We've gone through a checkered phase in our life, But to a large extent, we have not done badly, but we can do better.
We can do better.
Because as the largest black nation on earth, our potential is not what, people always talk about the fact that hope is not a strategy. For us, we always are talking about hope, I mean, at this point in time, we're talking about renewed hope. But what people are asking for is hope realized. When will we realize the hope, So to a large extent, we've not done badly, but we can do better. And I think we should stop this, we should try and realize our potential.
Yeah, because we should. Because I started with asking that if imagine a 64-year-old man and all you could talk about is his potential.
Yes.
That sounds to me like a predicament.
Yes.
At 64, you must have started realizing those potentials.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
In a generation, Afam, Nigeria's population, for example, is postulated to double from its current 200 million to 400 million, thus making Nigeria the third largest populous nation on earth. Now, should we be clapping, praying, or terrified as we celebrate 64? Because are we developing geometrically just like our population is increasing?
Well, it goes back to potentials.
Okay.
It goes back to that conversation, and I feel that we have realized our potentials in many ways.
Okay, please.
The first major one that we've realized is being together as a nation.
Okay.
Albeit we have issues on that.
Against all odds.
Yes, against all, yeah. So, but we are together as a nation.
We should celebrate that.
Yeah, we should celebrate that.
Yeah, because it could have been worse.
It could have been worse. And a lot of countries are fragmented from that.
We take that for granted.
Yes, so we take it for granted. But we are still there. We are still standing there. And we have issues, as you said, but we are still there. So that's a major potential that we've realized that we take for granted. Okay, and then going forward, you can never really say what will happen. The world is changing. You see, now when you're looking at a nation state and the development of a nation state, you have to look at it from outside your border. It's not only what happens internally that determines it. Also, what happens externally is going to play a major part.
Are you saying when you are comparing things or
basically
your situation?
When you're building.
Okay.
When you're building, other factors come into play more so now than before. More so now than before. So if you're projecting to 50 years time and you ask myself and you ask me, what is Nigeria going to be like in 50 years time? I'm not seeing the future as single unit nation states. I'm seeing the future as cartels of nations for you to be able to compete.
You both have brightened my day because it looks like both of you, your cup is half full, not half empty, isn't it?
Look at the area of agriculture, for example. Agriculture, our potential is unlimited. But people always talk about land. That agricultural conversation is a conversation that
we'll definitely, because there's no way I'll bring you to a program of this caliber and I won't talk agriculture. And of course, there's no way I'll drag Afam out and I won't talk about the laws that hold us together. So at some point,
quickly going back to what you were speaking to,
yes.
I mean, we've done very well. Look at the creative economy, for example. The creative economy has done well in spite of government. There are many areas which the people have said to themselves, you know what? Whether government exists or not, we'll be our own government.
Okay.
We'll do what we need to do.
Yes, so I'll try and give you the opportunity to point out for me the areas you think Nigeria have done very well, the area we've done averagely well, and the area we have not done well, just so that we put things in the right perspective. So let me stay with you. Project Nigeria is styled a blueprint to achieving a growth trajectory that encapsulates the entire national fabric. The idea is to enhance the human capital index and focus on the development of the mind through education and orientation. Is that what you are seeing today, generally, especially at the level, both sub-regional level and the national level? Have we paid emphasis to these two, education and social orientation?
I will say to a large extent we have not.
Okay.
Our budgetary provisions for education is a paltry. Last time I looked at the stats, it's a paltry between 6 and 7%. That's very low. Yeah. And you find out that the subnationals. You see, another thing we need to look at again. When we're talking about budgetary provisions and development, we should look at the subnationals and sometimes leave the center. We tend to layer the center and think that everything the center must do.
That's why I mentioned how important the subnationals
in this discourse half the time asleep.
Yes.
Okay, we have a proliferation of universities and all that, but are they coming up with, quality education. I do not think so.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to have 700, 1,500 or 2,000 tertiary institutions. The foundational level, we need to deal with it. I mean, look at history being taken out of the curriculum. Who does that?
Yes, so Afam, I was very intentional when I mentioned those two areas, because without education, 64 years after, if we don't pay attention to education and social orientation, you cannot lay a foundation for development. What do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ade, but then again, I'm slightly confused about the byproduct of our education system in Nigeria, educational system in the sense that every now and then we hear of Nigerian professionals or skilled workers going abroad, and the other day, how many Nigerian doctors went to UK? About 2,000 Nigerian doctors went to UK, and these are doctors that were trained in Nigeria, and they go there. I know that there's going to be a form of induction before they start practicing in UK, but by and large, their core training happened here in Nigeria, still under the same educational system that we have been complaining about. It could be better, no doubt about it. It could be better, but it's not as bad as we think it is. Because if it was that bad, people from outside would not be coming to Nigeria to poach skilled workers.
Can I?
So it's not as bad because we have made ourselves a factory that produces and exports our best brains. Is that what you're saying?
It's not as bad in terms of quality. I don't know whether it is because Nigerians are very brilliant people that wherever you put them, they will excel. Because by and large, every Nigerian youth now finds opportunity outside, and when they go there, they excel. And and then we are complaining about the educational system. Yes, it is bad in the sense that we could have done better comparing from where we are coming from.
So why are they not able to excel here? If things are not that bad, why haven't you created the environment for them to excel?
I was going to disagree with him.
Yes,
based on the fact that understand the enabling environment here.
Yes,
it's not the environment is not enabling,
and we've had 64 years to fix that.
Exactly, to fix it. So these guys leave and go to other climes and do well because the environment is enabling. The equipment for a medical doctor and all that to thrive is there. Here you have wrong diagnosis. Okay, he has it in there. Okay, but the tools to work with are not there. And again, you see, we have a systems problem, and we need to fix that system. But we need to fix that system holistically. We're used to ad hocism. It's a problem for us. We like this fire brigade approach. Fix it. Let's quickly do it. So and I'm one of those who believe that we do not have strong institutions. We have strong leaders, not strong institutions.
Strong leader, because I said that even Afam would know there's an Igbo proverb that says you start the beauty process.
Please, you can say it in Igbo, so that for the benefit of Igbo listeners.
I don't even know how to. But you start the beauty process from home.
Yes.
So you cannot be beautiful when you go outside, but when you are at home, you are mediocre.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a bit confusing, isn't it?
The working environment. What Ade was describing was a working environment. When they finish school, they go over there. Enabling environment for them to work and thrive in what they have learned. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's certainly far from perfect. But the learning environment is where the educational system comes into play. So there is a working environment. So you see a lot of Nigerian graduates going outside to work and they excel. That is the working environment. But where are they coming from? They are coming from a learning environment where they have acquired those skills to go and work. So what I'm saying is that yes, that learning environment could be far better than that.
Is it good enough compared to what you have?
I don't. When it comes to
this
incubator
that is producing this,
when it comes to nation building, I don't believe that any state you're in is ever good enough because there's always room.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
Let's take 3 countries with similar potentials like Nigeria. Indonesia, population 277 million people. Their GDP is 1.32 trillion. GDP per capita, $4,788. That's Indonesia. Brazil, population 216 million. GDP 1.92 trillion. GDP per capita, 8,916. Now, Nigeria, population approximately 220 million people. GDP, just 472 billion. GDP per capita, 2,162. What do you say about this picture?
Dr. Ken, thank you very much. There's a saying that in God I trust, every other thing is data.
Yes.
And you have come up with the data.
Yes.
As a nation, we have not been strategic, we've not been intentional, and we've not been deliberate.
Yes.
And that is why we're where we are. We're in this cul-de-sac,
Yes.
As a result of, what I just spoke to. And, everybody talks about when Indonesia in the
60s.
late 60s, took the palm fruits.
That's Malaysia.
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 Anyway,
is-
but
yes.
you could equally
but
equate it to
even
Indonesia.
Indonesia as well, because of those countries,
Yes.
Southeast Asian countries,
Yes.
came over to Nigeria at some point in time
Yes,
and looked
yes.
at how we're doing. Because in those days we had development plans
Yes.
that were long term, they were not short term. And those long term development plans, again, I don't know whether it's a system of politics. Maybe regionalism was very good then.
Okay.
Everybody was developing at its own pace and with its own potential, and brought a lot of things to bear to the center. But we've gone through that evolutionary process of political, But again, I'm not saying we're not. Nobody's expecting an El Dorado, but to a large extent, we're really, really pushing behind our weight. And I was one who spoke to the fact that we will never have a food crisis in the country as a somebody who's played in the agricultural value chain space for a long time. But I was worried at a point in time in the last 1-2 years.
Yes.
Okay, we had a food availability problem. We had a food availability problem. So that's double punched.
What are the two? Food availability.
Yes, the food and food affordability.
Affordability.
Yes,
Okay.
Because we had a crisis of no availability because of the fact that half of the time we always do one cycle for agriculture rather than 2 or 3 cycles, which other countries do, and that's because of a lack of system of cohesion between, for example, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture. So there was no synthesis, and there was no nexus. All of them were working in functional silos to a point in which you ask yourself, are you here for the common good or for the public good? And that's where we were missing it. And you find out that policies that come from government should not be involved in agriculture, or government should not be involved in business. Government should just provide the policy framework and work with the organized private sector. And in working with the organized private sector, work again with farmer cooperatives particularly to be able to help us with this food security. I'm one of those who believe that food security is an integral part of national security.
Yes,
Look at what happened in
it's central to national
look at what happened in Tunisia. Loaf of bread. Okay.
Yeah. Even in France, the revolution.
The guy went. The guy just went out there and self-immolation, and that's it. And that triggered the Arab Spring.
Yes.
And they've not fully recovered.
Yeah, so since it's not so bad, that's why I threw those figures out, so that we know what our peers, not just in West Africa or Africa, is doing. So, Afam, what do you say to that picture I've painted? You can imagine where their GDP per capita, those two countries, and where Nigeria own, just 2,000.
It's about
Nigeria.
Priorities and mindset.
Okay. So GDP shouldn't be our priority, or GDP per capita.
It's about priorities and mindset, and I'll explain it. Priorities in the sense that, quite a lot of decisions that we take in Nigeria, that will make us punch far above our weight, are taken as political decisions.
Okay.
And more often than not, when you do that, you misplace your priorities. And once priorities are misplaced, you can never achieve your goal. We have not been able to prioritize our developmental focus in Nigeria. You'll be surprised to know that we've been having national development plan, but we don't have policies that more or less explains and gives you a granular idea of what this development plans should be like and everything. We don't have policies with which people work with. Recently we developed an intellectual property fund, the federal government. It's been on the table for the past almost 2 years now, and it captures almost all aspects of existence. So we are punching far below our weight. Why are we punching? We should ask ourselves, the question should be, why are we punching below our weight?
Yeah. So why you are punching? It's very simple. It's leadership.
Leadership.
Which I'm going to go there now.
In different strata of our existence as a nation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So leadership is the issue, isn't it?
Yes.
Because going back, you're 64. You said there's no policy, there's no cohesion, there's no organization. And yet we are very intelligent people. Is that not a contradiction?
Exactly. That's a contradiction.
Yes. Now, post Nigeria, there was social, political, and economic trajectory, and we were moving 60s and 70s. So at what point did Nigeria start to decelerate into the political economy we have today? Because we needed to lead ourselves, but we've not done it as well as we did in the 60s and 70s. At what point, in your estimation, did we start to decelerate?
Well, a school of thought believes that when we left regionalism,
Okay.
was when we lost it. Okay.
What epoch was that? Was it in the 60s or 70s?
That was
just for the benefit of the listeners.
It was in the late 60s.
Okay.
Okay. It was in the late 60s when we jettisoned the parliamentary system and the regional system of government, and that's where we lost it. Okay. And we now imbibed democracy. Democracy, what do we call it? The presidential system of government.
Okay.
That is very expensive. Okay, and for us as a nation, we lost the plot. Priorities were misplaced. People didn't even have an idea of what they were doing. And in other climes, you have part-time legislatures, but for us, it's full-time. It's like that is where they go to, and for most of them for most of them, you have career politicians. For most of them who are governors, they go as senators, from senators, ministers, and they're constantly, the conveyor belt is very recycled. And you find out people who, with due respect again, who are geriatrics, who are still in the system, and you're asking yourself, what is the future for the youth? And the youth, you complain about the youth, even though the youth conversations are another conversation entirely.
Yeah.
Because somewhere along the line too, those ones too seem to they seem to be losing their way.
Yeah, because if you can't beat the system,
yes.
At some point you probably have
you just game it. And if you don't game it, you jackpot.
Yes.
And there's always this notion these days, or anytime there's any issue, the young kids talk about the fact that they're affecting their mental health. So the things we used to do back in the day, where we had the resilience, we had the guts, we had the gusto to do things. These days it's not like that anymore. But Afam spoke to the fact that the world is changing. It's fluid. Okay. There's a fluid system.
Yeah. So I'll give Afam the opportunity to speak to that. At what point do you think we started really progressing in error?
Olu just took it off my listing.
Ade.
Sorry, Ade. Regionalism.
Yeah.
When we veered away from regionalism, but he left one part, the military era. When we went into the military era, I don't know what they came to do. They did not come to solve patent problems that we had in Nigeria. They just came because they felt that the people they were taking over from were not doing things. It was a populist something, So regionalism is when the British left us, and they left us in regions because they looked at Nigeria, they studied Nigeria, they knew the diversity, the composition of Nigeria, that was a diversified nation, so to speak, and everything. And they set up a regional structure for that. In as much as our founding father, contrary to the general opinion, our founding fathers were not thinking about building a nation state because they were preoccupied with their regions. That the truth be told, all of them were preoccupied with developing their regions. But there was nothing bad in that. As long as we were there as a unit, development was going to aid the progression into limelight. And once we departed from that path, and we went into the era of military regimes and military coups and military takeovers and everything that did not have any definitive policy in terms of economic growth, and everything, nation building. And then we now went into the presidential system that was totally alien to the training the technocrats of that time had obtained, and the bureaucracy of that time had obtained. It was a free-for-all fall. And that is what we have now.
Yeah. So did you think, because I can see two of you if the conversation around regionalism could be instigated.
Yes.
So do you think Nigeria is ready for that? Do you think we have the tendency? Do you think we can go there? Or are there incentives in our political system that is inhibiting that conversation?
I think everything is political these days, and we need to be able to take that. People always talk about the political will.
Yeah.
That political will, is it there or is it lacking? I don't think there's anything wrong with us going back to regionalism. Yes, there is, and everybody bringing from their region something to the center. Let's have that kind of a confederal state where you have You know, look at Switzerland, for example. They have what you call cantons. You know, so the Swiss confederal system the center is very weak. You know, somebody just brings something to the center and that's it. And so when you don't make that center very attractive, all this jostling to be at the center, everybody going to Abuja to, I think will be minimized. Yeah, everybody will work at their own pace. So to that extent, every region brings something to bear. And I think we need to understand the strength in our diversity.
Most educated Nigerians know this.
Yes.
And because I hear this, and they clearly make this conversation in a very clear manner. But how come we are not able to have this conversation? What do you think?
We're not able to craft this conversation because a lot of the players right now do not want the perks of office taken away from them.
So those are the political incentives I'm talking about.
Yes, that goes back to the whole political thing we're speaking to. You know, these guys are very selfish and very self-centered. So they don't see the big picture. They only see from the narrow prism.
This is The Discourse with Dr. Ken.
If we go into regionalism with the current mindset that we have in Nigeria, it's going to be anarchy.
Please explain.
You know, because you see, if you go into regionalism with an over-bloated cost of governance,
but the regions will determine what kind of governance they want to do.
You're going to go back to square one. So it's a mindset something. You know, so we have to cure our mindset first.
How do you do that?
Yeah. That's a difficult question. We have to cure our mindset first, you know, and everything. I mean, I'm not saying that they should, even if you're going into regionalism, you have to have basically rules and regulations.
What you're saying, if you take all these bad habits into the regions, the result will be the same, isn't it? Or even worse.
It's going to be worse.
That's chaos.
It's going to be chaos.
Is that why Nigeria is refusing to have the conversation?
I don't know whether it is why Nigeria is refusing to have the conversation. I think that there are political interests involved in this thing.
Okay.
You know, I mean, how do you get that through the National Assembly? Basically, when a lot of them are going to lose their seats and everything, how is it going to be managed? You know,
it's a hopeless situation.
It's not a hopeless situation. It's something that we have to sit down and discuss and plan and agree. You know, because I mean, a lot of you're now talking about probably having one governor general or one premier or one this and everything instead of having 6 or 5 governors in the state and everything. I mean, they are going to start jostling for positions.
Yeah, but if it's in the larger interest of Nigeria, they shouldn't we be? Where does the larger interest of Nigeria come in?
The larger interest of Nigeria now.
But we need to, as a nation,
as a nation, have that discussion.
You need to, as a nation, see the big picture.
Yeah, but I've been hearing this.
And this
20 years now.
The current crop of politicians we have don't seem to see that big picture, which is why it's important for us to build institutions. Okay, we should build institutions and systems. And I do not completely. I mean, we have the National Confab report, which is there. You can just take that report and tweak it. Okay, tweak it. I don't think there's a need again for us to have another national conference, because for me that's another avenue
sovereign
whatever you want to call it. You know, it's all nomenclature.
Consulting the youth.
Consulting the youth and all that. We know what our problems are. We already have a report which just needs to be dusted, looked at, reviewed, and you know,
it's not easy. It's not that easy.
For me, it's not that. So you must speak to the fact that can we have an executive bill, an executive order?
You can't. It's not that. It's not that easy. You can, but it's not what is going to be used to achieve that. You know, it's not. So we have to go through the process, and going through the process is that's the lacuna. You know, and everything. That's the difficulty, the inhibition in it.
But we've had the consultative discussions.
The people that are occupying the process, the decision makers in that process are not going to allow you to go through. They are the gatekeepers. Are not going to allow you to go through. And we are talking about a constitutional regime. You know, because we are operating by constitution.
So there's a stalemate.
There's a stalemate.
And this stalemate could take us to when we are 70, isn't it? And we still talk about potential.
You see, when you talk about, in fact, that reminds me. I wanted to reply on that. When you're talking about the life of a nation,
yes.
70 is nothing.
Yeah, no, but if you consider the resources Nigeria has, 70, there's a lot we could have done in 70 years.
Which is 250 years.
Well, I mean,
but then there was no technology, there was no AI. Now, science and technology are so advanced that 10 years can mean a lot.
Science and technology just came about 15, 20 years ago. You know, it's a modern phenomenon, you know, and everything. I mean, the major part of it, the leaps and bounds of science and technology is just a major a modern phenomenon. But 70 is nothing. Everybody keeps on talking about Nigeria at 64, Nigeria,
No, the pain for people is the amount of resources, both human and
the amount of
and
wastages,
otherwise
the
resources
amount of
we have,
corruption,
and the way we conduct ourselves.
Yes,
even if we are not developing in terms of infrastructure, but even if it is just law and order,
yes.
do you have that in Nigeria?
Exactly.
Because there's some things that are very quick wins.
Yeah.
That's even at 64, you don't have to.
It brings me down back to what I'm thinking about in terms of the solutions to this.
We'll come to solutions last time, because I really want to explain what the issues are, so that the people
Discipline.
out there, yes, law and order, discipline,
do we have discipline,
collective discipline, and so on and so forth. So,
do we have discipline?
It looks like I'm honing in into. And by the way, you've talked about our democracy, and I'll go in there now. But before then, let me touch about leadership and the quality of leadership we've had in Nigeria, especially all this while we've had independence. In character and temperament, the typical African leader is unusually happy, thriftless, excitable, lacking in self-control, discipline, and foresight. Do you see Nigerian leaders in this light? If so, what has always been? Has it always been so since independence? And were they like this in the 60s, 70s, and 80s?
I think I'm old enough to know that it's not always been like this.
Yeah.
I mean, look at our first prime minister, for example.
Yes.
You know, we can look at our regional premiers back in the day as well. To a large extent, they were very, very, very.
Yes.
I mean, these guys, you look at them and you say to yourselves, I mean, this is what leadership should embody. But unfortunately, right
they
now,
inspire you,
Yes, inspire you, and
you
you say to yourself, I mean, come on. And it's not even about the education some of them got.
Yeah.
Some of them went to teacher training colleges and all that, but they were all grounded.
Yes.
I mean, you remember,
they had sense of purpose.
We talk about the days of the glorious years, where we used to talk about, for example, Africa being the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. You know, landmarks pronouncements by the likes of Joe Garba.
Yes.
You know, I mean. But right now, where are we in the Committee of Nations, particularly on the foreign diplomatic side?
Yes.
I mean, all of a sudden, those days we used to intervene in ECHO.
We used to lead.
We used to lead.
Now we are being
used
led.
to lead by the front. We are being led.
Yeah.
And now we are just we're not even consulted.
Yes.
You know, I just came back from the UN General Assembly recently, and I'm looking at us, and I'm saying to myself, where did you get to this sorry pass?
Yes, I was hoping you don't mention our attendance in Union Assembly, because I was wondering what the jamboree was all about. But having said that, Afam, you could see my description of the average Nigerian leader. And I take it again, he's typical, he's unusually happy, always happy, thriftless, excitable, lacking in self-control, discipline, and foresight. Do you agree with me or not?
Yes, basically, I do agree with you. Yeah, most of them.
So if these are people who are going to continue to lead us, how are we going to change the conversation?
Well, it's a selection method.
Okay.
The way and manner in which we go about selecting our leaders. That's what counts.
The pipeline.
You know, the pipeline.
Are we allowed to select? Because in our democracy, is it the man who votes that matter, or the man who counts?
Do we have democracy in Nigeria?
Okay, so we have democracy. Since 1999.
No, I mean we have democracy, but is it really democratic? I'm not talking about the past 10 years or anything. Has there really been a time where we've had democracy in Nigeria? Because I recall one election, and there were quite about senatorial election. There were about 5 candidates from 5 political parties, and the man that was eventually elected had 26% of the vote. Is that democratic?
Well, I'll ask you that, because now we've gone into democracy. And since 1999, we've had democracy. I mean, a democratic system of government.
We have to understand within the African parlance and in particular reference to Nigeria, what democracy means to us.
Okay.
And practice it the way we want it to be practiced.
You know, you're a top lawyer, so let me use this opportunity and ask you, what exactly is the meaning of democracy?
Democracy is a deception, as far as I'm concerned.
It's a scam?
Yeah, it is. That's what I believe. It's a deception, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry about that. Because the way it is practiced, the way it is being practiced, is a scam.
You mean here in Nigeria or globally?
Here in Nigeria and in most countries. Because as I just gave you an example. You have 5 people contesting an election. The man that wins it with about 31%. He has about 69% of the people that have not chosen him, and you say he's the leader. It's democratic.
Well, the Greek tell us that democracy is government for the people, by the people, for the people. Okay, that's the Greek.
By the way, when it came up in the Greek, it wasn't even practiced
the way it is practiced now.
In the totality of Greece. They selected the most educated
people.
area of Greece and tested it there. Meaning that democracy requires that people are educated.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they have a mind of well informed and not hungry, isn't it? You know. So I ask you, democracy is more than campaign promises.
Yes.
It is more than periodic elections, like we've seen, and democracy is much more than the absence of military rule. And like we know, all of us agree that the worst type of democracy is still better than the best type of military rule. So we don't want military rule, yes. But this one we are practicing that has brought Nigeria and the system under severe strain. What is the description? Is this still democracy or a special type of it?
Maybe what we will probably have to call it is a hybrid.
Hybrid.
Okay? Hybrid. Okay. And you know what has happened right is democracy we have right now is full of.
Is that what we signed up for?
It's not what we signed up for, but it's what we seem to be getting. You know, so. We technically have a passport. We don't have visas.
Okay.
So that's what it looks like. And to a large extent, it's all rhetoric. And again, let's speak to this democracy we're talking about. Look at the Middle East countries. They are monarchies, but they are still able to run, and they're running effectively and efficiently. You might call some of them better. I mean, look at. Let's even take an example of Singapore, where we had Lee Kuan Yew. He was a benevolent dictator. Okay. But at least the system was working. Okay. So, but for me, I think we just need to rejig the entire political architecture. Then again, another thing is our ethos. We have a problem, our ethos. You know, look at National Orientation Agency, for example. Okay. That is an agency that should be at the vanguard.
Is it still in
there?
Are you sure?
I think the last time we had anything good from there was during the Jerry Ghana days. Unfortunately, centuries ago, during the military regime. But right now, you know, so we have a plethora of agencies that, you know, are just existing.
You wonder what they exist.
And exactly. And you ask yourself, I mean, what are they doing?
So Afam, because I hear you on democracy, the way democracy has been described and written in the dictionary, you don't seem to agree with it. So I ask you, do Nigeria really need a special system, therefore, or if I can call it made in Nigeria democracy?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so
absolutely,
what would that be?
You know, and whatever system you practice, if you don't have the intent and purpose to be honest about it, you know, and if you don't educate the people about it, you know, it's going to fail. You know, and when we say democracy, let's go back to democracy, and you say universal suffrage. You know, that means everybody is allowed to vote. And you come in there and you're giving people bags of rice and they are voting for you, and your people giving people money and they are voting for you and everything. And do you call that democracy? You know, you see, I don't think that at this stage of our development, honestly speaking, I don't think that everybody should be allowed to vote.
You don't think everybody should be allowed to vote?
No, I don't think it should be.
So, please, can you deepen that conversation? Who should vote? And what would be the system?
I think, that's my personal opinion, is that I think that to a certain extent, people that contribute to the economy, one way or the other, should be allowed to vote. If you pay tax in any form, you will know what.
You're a stakeholder.
You become a stakeholder, and you know what a misappropriation of your tax means to you. But if you don't pay tax, you have not contributed in any way or form to the company and to the polity, you know, and you are not educated, you don't understand what is going on. All you know is that you see a group of people standing on a podium speaking and distributing largesse, and all you want to do is to go there and get your own share. Are you contributing to democracy? You're not contributing to democracy. You know, so it's either we enlighten our people very, very well and we tell them what this thing means, which I believe a lot of them know, because there's also the issue of trust. You know, it's gotten to the stage where people don't trust anybody again that comes up on the podium to tell them any story. So all they are thinking about is let me get whatever I can get from them and go my way. But is that democracy? So I think we should go back to that Greek something we were talking about, the Greek state.
The system.
The system that they both practice democracy.
I didn't know what he spoke to.
Yes, please.
I don't think it's that bad. Okay. But I think for me, we don't hold our leaders accountable. And what doesn't get measured doesn't get done.
Yes. So how do we hold them accountable?
And our problem right now is that to a large extent we have a problem now with the stomach infrastructure.
Okay.
A man who is hungry will take money from ABC, but can still, in his conscience, still go and vote for who he wants to vote for. But you find out that even when you're going to vote for A or B, somebody is following you and saying that, okay, this is we paid you for X, we paid you for Y, you must vote for this candidate. So we need to rejig our entire political system to a point in which...
Yeah, but how do you do that if the system you've run for the last 20 years never have thrown up emperors who themselves have impoverished the people who should be voting?
No, what should now happen is that a lot of us complaining should become stakeholders.
When you say us, are you saying the elite?
The elite, yes.
Okay.
And the elite should even start with this system of starting from the local governments, for example, which is closer to the people. That is my take. And again, you see...
Yeah, but if you talk, you just spoke about that, and we had local government elections in a couple... In fact, we had one yesterday.
Yes.
Do you think
Well,
any elite...
That was the only one that was
highlighted,
yes,
Do you think any elite who was former multinational CEO could have contested in Rivers and won?
To a large extent, you see, those are pockets. Those are pockets. Okay. Yeah, you look at those pockets, the isolated pockets of malfeasance. Okay, but to a large extent.
But in Benue State, the ruling party too, all the local governments, the ruling party won.
The fact that the ruling party took all the votes didn't make it.
It doesn't raise any eyebrow, isn't it? It's democratic.
For me, you have to look at it in totality. I don't want to. I'm a casual bystander here, so I can't speak to it.
I'm just asking.
No, I can't speak to it.
The point is that the people are complicit in this. We always blame the elite, we always blame the government, we always blame, but the people are complicit. The general citizens are complicit in it.
Are they driven to this state?
Well, it's like the chicken and the egg, which came first, and everything.
Because when you say they are complicit,
they are complicit.
Yes,
they are complicit in it, in the sense that right from the beginning, I don't know where they started. It's not about stomach infrastructure or 5 or 6 days. It's been there long before that. It came long before that. They are complicit in this, in the sense that it boils down to education. Do they actually know what they are going there to do? Do they know that the thumbprinting of a ballot box determines their future?
So we, the elite, do we go back to our different local governments and educate the people? Since we are sufficiently concerned.
No,
it's not.
There's a limit to what we can do.
There's a limit to exactly. There's a limit to what you can do. There's a limit to what you can do. You have to. That's why we have to find a political system that basically, in a way, cuts off all these excesses and streamlines the operations of elections in Nigeria. And everything. And I believe that one of the ways that we can make changes in Nigeria. I did ask me a question about some time ago about what we can do in the absence of the people sitting there now not being able to allow us to progress. We can use judicial pronouncements to make very, very great progress in Nigeria, where we have difficulties passing through the National Assembly.
Okay, fantastic. Now that we're on the home stretch, I was struggling with the messages because of technical glitches. But somebody has sent to my own phone a day, and this is for you. He said, the Nigerian economy has transitioned from agriculture-based to oil-dependent.
Yes.
Has this shift been a blessing or a curse for our nation's development since independence? How might we better or leverage our resources?
That question is a very loaded question.
Yeah.
For us, prior to now, we'll be very
cultural.
Monocultural.
Right.
So, and monoproduct wise, and we relied too much on it. So it became more or less a cost on an albatross. And we neglected agriculture. Agriculture was the mainstay.
Okay.
A school of thought believes that prior to now, in the early years, agriculture was contributing about 64% to GDP.
Yeah.
Now it's contributing about 23%.
From 64 to 23.
23%. So
Okay.
you can see that we have...
Yeah, but you can look at it in different ways.
Yes.
If agriculture was 64% those days and now it's 23, does it mean that the difference has gone to other sectors in terms of development?
Partially.
You
but,
get my
but you see,
drift,
you have to look at production and you have to look at revenue. In
Okay.
terms of revenue,
Yes.
okay, because it's to a large extent oil.
Okay.
Oil and gas. Okay? In those days there was oil, but to a large extent it was agriculture.
Okay.
So that's what I'm speaking to. So, and for us, I think the way out for this is that we must have a concerted effort. Okay, we've had many policies which have spoken to agriculture, Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and all that. But you see, these have all been slogans. They've not been, they've not been revolutionary enough along the lines of what you have in countries like Vietnam, for example. On these Southeast Asian countries who have been very deliberate in what they do. And in being deliberate, you have to put. Let me quickly just give an example. Look at wheat, for example.
Okay.
Wheat is a major component for flour, pasta, and other pasta related products. Nigeria produces about 100,000, between 100 and 200,000 tons of wheat. Meanwhile, our consumption is between 4.5 and 5 million tons. And we're talking about the fact, first and foremost, wheat is a temperate crop.
The difference, where is it coming from?
No, we're importing it.
From where exactly?
From the likes of Ukraine.
Can you see Ukraine is at war, but it produces more wheat than Nigeria. That is
Ukraine is at war.
Or is Nigeria at war too?
Ukraine is at war. Russia is at war.
Yeah.
And
Russia is not at war.
Russia is at war with Ukraine.
Ukraine is at war.
Am I right?
Yes.
Russia is at war with Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine is at war with Russia. That's
Okay.
on which side of the Bible we look at it. So, but for us, like I said, we have competitive advantage in many areas. I mean, we're the largest producer of cassava in the world.
Yes.
We're the largest producer of yams in the world. But we have a system internally that just disrupts that entire flow, and we're not just very honest with ourselves.
Well, and deliberate.
Yes. I spoke to something at the beginning of this program.
Yes.
I said we must be strategic,
Yes.
we must be intentional, and we must be deliberate. If we're not any of those three, we'll be winking at a lady in the dark.
In the dark.
She
Well,
won't see us.
we're drifting. Afam, there's a message to you for you too, and it came to my phone instead of the screen. It says, ethnic tensions have persisted since independence. Are we any closer to achieving national unity, or has the concept of one Nigeria become nothing more than a political slogan?
Well, if you go by the way we've been operating for a while now, it's more or less of a slogan. Ethnic tensions are going to persist in more ways than one because of what is going on internationally. It is not only in Nigeria. If you go through the whole coast of West Africa, from Senegal, from Mauritania, Senegal, Ivory Coast, they all have ethnic tension. And the question is, what are the causes of this ethnic tension? My take is, first, over-centralization. What over-centralization does, especially in the African parlance, is that it does not give room for people to progress according to their needs. Food security is very, very essential in Africa, West Africa, for you to have less of ethnic tension. Ethnic tension arises out of land grab, land encroachment, political power, political manipulation, and then food security, what Adi was talking about. If you don't have very, very, very deliberate plans of curbing these issues, they are going to persist. So if you ask me, is ethnic tension growing in Nigeria? We all know ethnic tension is growing in Nigeria from the days of Matasiele. Now everywhere, every nook and cranny of Nigeria. If you go to the east, you go to the north, you go to the west, you can't drive on the express road, and everything. They will tell you, either this militant group or this marauding group or this.
So why did you not say it's not as bad?
I
the situation with Nigeria.
I didn't say it's not as bad. I said it's commonplace in Africa, in West Africa now. It's commonplace in West Africa now. But you can curb yours. The Ghanaians have been able to curb yours to a certain extent. They've done very, very good work at that. To a certain extent. And so you can curb it. But the point is that what is causing the ethnic tension in Nigeria?
Okay, we'll answer that. Because we have just 3 or 4 minutes to go. This one, any of you can take this, but I think I'll leave Ade since it's Adefeko to speak to this next. This guy saying I'm in my 20s. I am not as excited as both of you are. I can see that both of you are above 50 from the way you speak. For example, the brain drain phenomenon has intensified in recent years. Are we not losing our best and brightest at an alarming rate? And what implication does this have for Nigeria's future development?
You see, the brain drain. Well, he's in his 20s. The brain drain. This is the second phase of brain drain in Nigeria.
The second wave, yeah.
Second wave, of brain drain in Nigeria. I remember the days of was it Andrew?
Andrew. Out,
you know, that was in the 80s. 80s. I think it was in the 80s. 80s. Mid 80s. Early 80s, mid 80s. You know, and it wasn't as serious as it is now. You know, but then again, you have to look at it that we are more now. We are talking about 200 and something million people. Then we are talking about maybe 140 million or 90 million.
Actually, about 120.
About 120. Sorry, now
120.
No.
Yeah. So what's the argument? What are you driving at? Because we are more, we can let more.
No. Certainly not. No. What I'm just taking back to history, that this is not the first time it's happening. You know, and basically, why it is happening is that it is more or less a reflection of a failed state. It is a reflection of a failed state, you know. And what do you do to bring back the people? You know,
is it a failed or a failing state?
A failing state.
Okay.
Whether it's failing or it's good. When it gets to the point where you are, when it gets to the point where you abandon your house and you run away, you know.
So we could have done much more in 64 years, going by this summation. So we have just 2 minutes, Ade and Afam, and this question, a minute each for you. You know, leaders are not developed overnight. That we say, because leadership is central to the conversation we've had today.
Very true.
Leaders are not made in a microwave. They have to be simmered in a crock pot.
Yes.
The question is, where have all the leaders gone? Nigeria was once a country that was once remarkable for the way it produced leaders. Can you please take me back to history? Where have all our leaders gone?
A lot of our leaders are currently or in a leadership our leadership pipeline. I mean, a lot of leadership pipeline comes from the likes of the MNI. They go to National Institute, Policy and Strategic Studies. They go there, come out, but they're not able to implement anything because of the systemic rot. Okay, but you can't keep excusing that to a large extent. So what we have right now is that we don't have leaders anymore. We have rulers, and a lot of times we don't even hold these so-called leaders. These so-called rulers or leaders that we call some people call them to account. There's no accountability. A man mounts the rostrum and tells you, I will do X, Y, Z. Over that period, nobody holds him to account and says, in year one, based on your manifesto, you promised to do X, Y, Z. You've not done it. So there's no sanction, and there's a trust deficit between the leadership and the led.
So after 1 minute for that.
Most of our leaders went into hibernation when we stopped selecting them by merit.
Okay, so merit once merit was thrown away. So that's where the issue is.
A lot of people did not put themselves forward.
Yes, I think this last contribution is from Okechukwu from VGC. He says, Mr. Afam, I disagree with you. I don't think you treated the case of education very well because our tertiary institutions are majorly not healthy. And I beg to correct you. He says again too that the argument about our people going abroad and doing well is because they are self-taught. Things are not good in Nigeria like you have painted. Anyway, we'll have another opportunity to discuss this.
It could be better. It could be better, and it could have been worse. Honestly, it could be better. I'm not saying it's good. It could be better, but it could have been worse.
Okay, fantastic. I've had a fantastic day, and looking at Nigeria at 64. So now we have opportunity. I have two guests today. One will give me a very good Nigerian proverb or African proverb, and the other one will give me music for the week. So who's giving me the proverb?
I'll give you the proverb.
Okay, please go.
I will allude to conscience is an open wound. Only truth can heal it.
Conscience is an open wound. Only truth can heal it. Fantastic.
Is that a proverb?
Yes.
A slogan?
Yes. So we take it as a proverb for the week. Conscience is an open wound. So the conscience of Nigeria is an open wound. Yes. Only truth can heal Nigeria. That's what I hear. I
really chose this to speak to
the topic of today.
To the current circumstance.
Yes, fantastic. So what will be your chosen music for the week?
Let's start. By fella.
And that's it on The Discourse with Dr. Ken.